Hello and welcome to Small Business Snippets, the podcast from smallbusiness.co.uk. I'm your host, Anna Jordan. In this episode, we have Jackie Fast, an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and former candidate on The Apprentice in 2018. She came to the UK from Canada in 2007 as a first stop on her European backpacking tour, but decided to stick around and work as a sponsorship director at the Data and Marketing Association instead. In 2010, Jackie began building her business, Slingshot Sponsorship. She sold the firm in 2016 and is now running Rebel Pie, a Canadian ice wine company. We'll be talking about building a business from home and how to make sponsorship work for you. Hello, Jackie.
Hello, Anna.
How are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks.
Great. Let's start with your arrival in the UK. So what made you decide to give up your backpacking adventure and work in London and build a business here instead?
Honestly, when I arrived, I'm from a small town in Canada, and my experience was minimal. And I've always been very ambitious and very determined. And a lot of the people that were around me were not so much. And so when I came to London, it really was to explore Europe, because obviously people talk about it. Never been to Paris, never. So when I landed in London, I just was overwhelmed with like the energy of the city, but not necessarily the energy of the city like you'd get in New York, but the people and how like the views that people had here and also the types of work that they were doing. So I met a lot of people in finance and I didn't even know that that was like a job that you could have. And I was just blown away. Like it, it wasn't an immediate thing. I was supposed to be here for like 2 weeks and then travel the rest of Europe. And I was like, oh, I love London. I'll stay a couple more weeks. And that kind of went on to a couple months. And then I was like, oh, I don't want to leave. But and then just over time, I was like, I really want to stay here.
When you decided to launch Slingshot Sponsorship, you only had a laptop and £2,000. How did you support yourself financially in the early stages of the business? I'm sure a lot of our listeners will want to know.
Not well. I think the answer is I am somebody I'm pretty frugal, actually, generally. But basically, in those initial months, I just cut back like hardcore. So I didn't leave the house really for like weeks on end. And I didn't eat beans on toast, but I certainly was eating a lot of ready meals and stir fries and cereal. But for the first, I'd even say year and a half, I wouldn't even go to Starbucks. Like I couldn't even afford takeout coffee, quite frankly, because every single dollar and every single pound that I saved was really going towards hiring my first employee. And it was really hard. And Slingshot got successful early, but I didn't really have personal money for at least 2 to 3 years, I'd say. And I only literally just bought this house when I sold the business. Up until then, I was, 30. All my friends owned houses. I couldn't afford to. I was renting. But I always had it in me that I would make that sacrifice.
We're filming in Jackie's house, by the way, just for a little bit of context. So what about income?
So £2,000 could pay for rent for like 4 months, basically. And I took a couple commission-only things. And so I got like a couple £100 here. I think so I had like a lot of small clients first. So it took me 9 months to secure Slingshot's first client. So I would take small jobs that would pay 500 quid, 600 quid, £1,000, and I would just live off of those kind of things and those projects. And I worked really hard to try to get people to give me money, like all small businesses do. But I was really, really conscious about how much money I spent. And our website, is a great example. So when we launched Slingshot, I went out to loads of agencies. Everybody was kind of quoting like 7,000, 6,000. I didn't even have the money. And I ended up going to a digital agency who I knew through the Direct Marketing Association and asked to swap to be kind of like a case study for them. So right. It was kind of like a guinea pig thing. And I ended up paying like nothing for it, which, I just bartered for everything.
It's interesting because they say entrepreneurs, even when they start earning a lot more money, still have that frugal mindset all those years later.
Yeah, I've always been like that. So my husband jokes a lot actually, because before I sold Slingshot and after I sold Slingshot, there's no difference. We have a nice house and we have done some great traveling experiences for sure. But I don't spend a lot of money. We don't spend a lot of money. And actually a lot of the Almost all of the money I made at Slingshot, I've reinvested into other businesses. So, I bought our house, which is great. And I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for me. But everything else has gone into making more money.
Usually we ask about our guests' specialisms, which in your case is sponsorship. So
it's everything, Anna. What do you mean, just sponsorship?
For a beginner, what is sponsorship and how can a small business owner make opportunities work for them?
In a nutshell, sponsorship is a collaboration between two businesses. Most people look at sponsorship as a transaction of giving somebody logos or branding or badging in return for money. But a lot of the cases and a lot of big sponsorships are done in contra. So in a way, the website agency that I was just talking about, I swapped to be a case study for them. They gave me a website. In a sense, that was a sponsorship. And I think the future of all business is sponsorship. And most people will be familiar with stuff like Firefest or Beats by Dre. All of that is sponsorship. So any kind of collaboration between two organizations is effectively sponsorship.
How do you handle that first approach then? Because I imagine that those relationships and creating those first impressions is very important.
Actually, what you said, one of the things you said was right and one of the things you didn't. A lot of people think it's who you know. Everybody thinks, oh, well, I could sell sponsorship if I just knew the head of HSBC. Like, I actually know the head of HSBC. I've never, ever sold him anything because nothing I ever had was a good fit for what they did. And actually, knowing people isn't the point. But what you also said is having a first impression. Mm-hmm. Where people fall flat is they don't really understand what they're selling. They don't package it very well, and they don't value it. So it'd be like going into a shop without a price tag with stuff in the window, you wouldn't go in. Same deal with sponsorship. And I think there needs to be an increase in professionalism for making those approaches. And Slingshot was testament to that because effectively that's all we did. I didn't create events. I didn't make something better. I took what people already had and made it valuable to brands.
When a small business owner is starting out, what kind of events or information can they seek out to help them?
So I think there's two things. So if you are a rights holder, so if you are an event or, an online publication or a podcast or a travel blogger or whatever, it really is about how you package your assets and then understanding which brands to approach. So I've actually written a book called Pinpoint. It's the only book that is dedicated to sponsorship sales. But there are other things you can, go online, but it really is about understanding how to package something. If you are a brand looking for a sponsorship, that in a way is easier because everybody wants money. But from a brand perspective, it really is the event that you're interested in going to speak to your target audience? Do you have like a really good reason for being there? Is it authentic? Are you going to approach it in an interesting way? How can you engage with those people in a genuine and authentic way?
And that's best done by market research.
I think it's dependent on the brand, but yeah, market research, I think understanding your audience and then ensuring, so let's just say you're after mums, okay? Let's say you are a new gym for mums or I'm not a mother. This is the worst thing to go. Let's say you're after mums though. You can actually look at what types of platforms are out there to reach mums. So Race for Life is actually a huge one in its local communities. But let's say you want mums based in Leeds. Actually, you can go and find forums and groups within Leeds and kind of look at the events that they're approaching or the events, the physical venue space. There might be a digital community or a forum. And then I'd approach those people saying, this is my product. I'm interested in working with you in a sponsorship, not advertising. I would never recommend advertising. What kind of packages are available? And most people will have a sponsorship package.
What kind of things should you be looking for in that package then?
I would always look for opportunities that go beyond a logo. I don't think badging is valuable anymore. Brand recall used to be in the 80s, but we're hit with 60,000 messages a day now.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, you
exhausting.
would know it's exhausting. And it's not that, it's just your brain just gets tuned off. So I would be looking for what kind of assets can I engage with your audience? So speaking slots would be something because then it gives me an opportunity to talk. Guest blog spots, posts. Can we run a joint promotion, a campaign? Can we distribute free product? Those are the kind of things that I think actually really kind of push the needle on a sponsorship.
As mentioned in the intro, these days you're running Rebel Pie, which is an ice wine company, which is quite a niche. It's also quite risky. You're explaining that it's very dependent on temperature, weather conditions, people being able to pick grapes in the middle of the night at short notice. How do you manage this risk, particularly when it comes to cash flow?
I mean, I'd probably say I'm not managing it well. I went from selling ideas to a physical product, which I wanted to do to test myself. But it is very hard from a production standpoint because the only way to make ice wine is picking grapes at below -8. If it doesn't get below -8, you don't have a vintage, you don't have a product. So you have to be patient. You have to work with really smart people in the vineyard that know how to create ice wine each year. And you have to be willing to ride it out. I mean, our first year, we've done really well. We've sold about 60% of our bottles. It's now listed in places like City Social, 67 Pall Mall, Pied à Terre, Dinner by Heston, all of those kind of top places. Now for me, it's, do we have enough production for next year? So I'm holding back stock so that if we didn't get a vintage next year, we could then still distribute, because I wouldn't want you to go into a restaurant, be able to order it, and then next month you can't for like 12 months. Yeah, so I'm managing stock. From a financial perspective, I am taking a hit, basically. I'm not looking at being profitable on this until year 3. We probably will be, if all things go to plan. I mean, it's not winter yet. If all things go to plan, we should be fine for next year. But in the event we're not, I'm looking long term at this. I created this product because I was on TV, basically, and I didn't want to waste my 15 minutes of fame. And so I wanted to have something that people could buy. That was a stupid strategy because the majority of the people that watch The Apprentice are 14-year-old girls. So they legally can't even buy my wine. I launched the business with an expectation that was incorrect, and I've had to fix it. But I've changed the strategy and everything's fine. And it's great. And I'm super excited to be working with a product that you can touch, that you can taste, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. And it does seem like you have a very clear target market, especially the premium, which I think people are moving away from more disposable, fast type things into buying less but better quality. So, I mean, it's
totally
a better direction to go in.
People are drinking less, people are buying less, but when they do it, they want to enjoy it. And that's certainly what I have found personally and amongst my group of friends. And the greatest thing about ice wine really within the UK market is almost nobody's had it. So like, when do you get to give somebody a first? So unheard of. So I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned The Apprentice and it giving you a kind of platform, but you were already quite a seasoned and successful entrepreneur, having sold Slingshot when you went on, and even Alan Sugar fired you because you were too experienced to be the business partner that he wanted. So what did you get out of the program in the end?
I'll go back to the first part. The only reason I did The Apprentice was because I sold my business. I don't know if I would have had the courage to do so before, but I had already made I felt enough of a name for myself. So if I came across looking like a then at least I had, at least I could fall back on my previous success. Well, I mean, you don't know. You have no idea what you're going into. So I was lucky that I didn't.
Yeah, so much of it is in the edit as well, isn't it? You never know what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, it's just like, it's unrealistic to think that. Oh, first of all, it's an entertainment program, and I am not stupid to not be aware of that. And also, it would be naive to think that you are 100% great 100% of the time. I mean, there are very long days. You're working with people you don't know. You have no idea what to expect. You cannot prep at all. All of those mistakes that I made that are absolutely hilarious, I totally made. Like, that's not an edit. That's 100% what I did, because that's what happens. That's what happens in life.
Yeah,
you just don't have a camera following you around 24/7 waiting for you to mess up. But in terms of what I took away from it, when I got asked, I was like, yeah, I don't even know if I can do this. But then I kind of did. My husband was very kind. He said if I was awful, we would fly to India and like let it blow off steam for a year. Fortunately, we didn't have to move. Now, in hindsight, if you asked me if I would do it again, I would do it in a heartbeat. It was so different than what I expected. What I got out of it is having experience doing totally different things, which I love. I mean, if I could spend a year doing that every single day, I totally would.
Oh yeah, the variety is so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I got to make donuts. I sold stuff at a bodybuilding thing. I created an art gallery. Like, you know, you couldn't even do those things in a lifetime, you know?
Yeah.
So I was really fortunate to do that. And I mean, I still talk to like Claude Littner a lot, and he's been great. So, I mean, I've met some great people from it as well.
Nice. What was your favorite part of the whole process?
I think my favorite part, I mean, at the time it was pretty stressful. I would say I didn't love being in the house. I loved doing the task. I think my favorite task was probably the art task. Actually, that's a lie, the shoe task. I lost my favorite task though.
What made it your favorite?
I got to design a shoe. I love shoes, and I got to be the boss, which I like to be because it's easier. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it also played to my wheelhouse. I sold like stuff to businesses, and B2B sales is, you know, kind of what I do.
You mentioned Claude, who you got along very well with. There was one contestant in particular who you didn't have such a great relationship with. So what kind of advice do you have about working professionally with a personality that clashes with your own?
I think The Apprentice isn't a real life situation. So my recommendation to myself would have been having more patience, which I did not have. But in a real life situation, honestly, and this is probably not what people would say, I would say avoid the person, quite honestly. Like, you won't always get on with everybody, and people won't always get on with you. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But being able to work well with somebody that you don't like is an asset, you know?
Yeah.
And if they don't like you, I wouldn't try to beat a dead horse. You know, you shouldn't be there trying to like make friends with people. Really, you should be doing there to do your job. And you should also not try to make their job harder either.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, my recommendation honestly would be to try to have minimal interaction with the person you don't like.
Yeah, just trying to stay out of each other's space, I guess.
Yeah, which in The Apprentice was impossible because we were living together.
Smashing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jackie.
Thanks for having me, Anna.
You can find out more about Jackie at jackiefast.com. You can also visit smallbusiness.co.uk for more guidance on bootstrapping your business and managing your cash flow. Remember to like us on Facebook at Small Business Experts and follow us on Twitter at Small Business UK, all lowercase. Until next time, thank you for listening.